Well, good morning. My name is Will Lawson, and welcome to the Morning Report. Today, we're not talking about some side street controversy. We're talking about a scandal so ridiculously absurd, so outrageously dangerous, and so insulting to anyone that has a speck of what we call common sense that it makes you wonder if anybody in charge is awake at all. Here's the headline: Iowa School Board of Education, the Des Moines School District, and yes, ICE, the federal agency tasked with actually enforcing our laws. All of them failed so badly that a man with a deportation order, a weapons rap sheet, and a fugitive status ended up running Iowa's largest school system. Yeah. A fugitive superintendent with a loaded gun in his car, $3,000 of cash in his hand, and a deportation order on file. This isn't some ridiculous TV drama. This is taxpayer reality. And today we're going to walk through what happened, who knew, who didn't, who's lying, who's covering, and who ought to be packing up their offices. Let's start with the man at the center, Ian Andre Roberts. He's not some lightweight because on paper, he's got all the academic polish in the world. Degrees from Coppin State, Georgetown, MIT, a doctorate in educational leadership. A lot of people have a doctorate in educational leadership, but anyway, he does. The guy looks like an all-star candidate for superintendent. But peel back the polish. What do you find? A history of immigration violations, a final order of removal issued in May of 2024, and a prior weapons-related arrest from 2020. Not exactly the resume you'd expect for the top job educating 30,000 students. Even worse, when ICE finally arrested him in September, what they find in his car? A loaded handgun, a fixed blade knife, like a hunting knife, around $3,000 in cash. Folks, that doesn't sound like a superintendent's day planner. That sounds like somebody who is ready to bolt. Now, here's where the Iowa Board of Education and the Des Moines School Board step into the Hall of Shame. They knew all about his degrees. They knew about his background. They claim they ran a comprehensive background check. They even issued him a superintendent's license back in July of 2023. But let's call it what it was, a paper shuffle. Because whatever background check they ran sure didn't catch a deportation order sitting in a federal database. It didn't catch a prior weapons charge. It didn't catch immigration violations. So either one or the other of these things, their system is garbage, hot, stinky garbage, and it can't catch real flags or flies. Or two, they didn't want to know and rubber stamped him anyway. Now, which is worse? Frankly, that's up for debate. Now, we have to address the other side of this nonsense. We here at FightBack Media are pro getting illegals out of the country and we want to stand behind our ICE agents. And I think this is more of an administrative, because you can't trust the administrations in a lot of these organizations for all sorts of reasons, because they are part of the deep state. So now we're going to talk about the other part of this, the Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE. They had a final deportation order on Roberts since May of 2024. That means under US law, this man was supposed to be removed from the country. Period. No cap. Case closed. But instead of enforcing it, Roberts lived open. He worked openly. He drew a public salary. And even had the audacity to run Iowa's largest school district. Now, when he knew that he had this deportation order, he knew that he had these weapon charges. And so when apparently they were looking, he sort of threw his hat in the ring for this job of superintendent while they were doing their national search, having been in a school district. When one superintendent leaves, they always decide to go on this national search. Almost every single time, I think, except the last two times, their national search ended up picking somebody who was upstairs from the school board building in the same building. But I digress. So he decided, knowing he had all this stuff on him, decided, oh, I'll apply. I'll get it. It'll be all right. So the $1 million question is, who at ICE knew what was going on here? And when did they know it? And why in the world did they wait until September to pick him up when they knew in May? This isn't some underground fugitive hiding in a cave. His name was on the school district's website. His picture was in the paper. Parents shook his hand at graduation ceremonies. And ICE wants us to believe they just got around to him now? No, that's not law enforcement. That's political theater. There were in all of this, there are layers of failure on top of failure. There's a failure crab sandwich a mile high here. So let's line up the suspects on the accountability board. First, the Des Moines School Board. They vouched for him. They signed the contract. They told the public he was cleared. So either that was incompetence or dishonest. Let's slather another layer of accountability here. The Iowa Board of Education examiners, they issued his superintendent's license. If their vetting process doesn't even scratch the surface of a criminal and immigration history, then their whole office is worthless. What are they doing? The Iowa Department of Education, they're supposed to oversee the system, all of it. Oversight means catching failures before they blow up. They did not. ICE, and specifically the St. Paul field office. The St. Paul field office is the one that's in charge of that area. They had the file. They had the order. They had the authority. I mean, let an entire year pass before they did the job. I mean, who he was. He wasn't hiding. So at every rung in this ladder, people were either asleep, complicit, or actively dodging responsibility. Billy Graham famously said he believed the next move of God would be believers making a difference in the marketplace. In the fall of 2019, Anton Kresic moved to Washington, D.C. And as Anton began his career in the political arena, two things became obvious. Godly principles were lacking on both sides of the aisle, and many organizations were putting profits before people. 7 Weeks Coffee was started to reverse this trend and live out Graham's calling as believers in the marketplace. As a values-based business, 7 Weeks Coffee has a simple and transparent mission. Donate 10%, a tithe, of every sale to pregnancy care centers across the nation. They are committed to earning your trust, not expecting it. So how do they do this? Leading with their values, showing the impact and providing the highest quality product. I am a Christian. I'm conservative. And 7 Weeks Coffee unapologetically supports pregnancy care centers across the nation. Please join us by letting your coffee serve a greater purpose. Now, you can already hear the spin. The school board says, we ran a comprehensive background check. Translation, we used whatever vendor gave us a PDF and never looked past it. The Iowa Examiner Board says he met the academic requirements. Translation, we don't ask tough questions if the degrees look shiny. And ICE, they hide behind prioritization and resources. Translation, we only enforce the law when it's convenient and politically useful. Folks, if comprehensive doesn't mean catching a deportation order, a weapons charge, and fugitive status, then the word comprehensive doesn't mean anything. All right, let's get blunt here. Accountability means names. I have to ask the question: who needs to be getting fired? Who needs to resign? Who needs to be looking for another job? Who needs to be retiring early? Whatever. Let's talk about the first set of people: the school board leadership, the chair of the school board, the hiring committee, anybody who vouched for him. Let's go up to the next level, the head of the Iowa Board of Education Examiners. Their entire vetting system failed miserably. Somebody in leadership at ICE St. Paul. If you've got a fugitive superintendent, it wasn't like the guy was working at a pizza joint, and he was couch surfing, so he was hard to find, right? He was the superintendent of the largest school district in Iowa. The superintendent of the largest school district in Iowa. You can find him. So he was right under your nose. He wasn't under your nose. He was sitting on your forehead. And you didn't do anything for a year. Nothing. I'm sorry, you don't deserve that badge. Too many people in that organization are risking life and limb on a regular basis for you to have something that easy to do and then not do it. And yes, state education brass, who sort of all shrugged their shoulders when it happened, y'all need to go too. If even one of these people has the nerve to say, we couldn't have known, the answer is simple. Then you shouldn't have the job. Now you're going to ask me, so Willie, why does this matter? Because it's not just about Roberts. It's about public trust. Parents trust schools to protect children. Taxpayers trust agencies to enforce laws. When the whole system fails, it doesn't just embarrass Iowa. It tells every parent in America, your schools were run on blind faith and broken systems. And here's the kicker. Roberts could have stayed right where he was if ICE hadn't happened to pick him up on a traffic stop. Think about that. It wasn't some grand sting. It was just dumb luck. That's how fragile enforcement is. All right, so what's the verdict? Ian Roberts is responsible for his own actions, obviously. He lied, hid, kept working under a deportation order. The Des Moines School Board failed its duty. They owe parents an apology and their resignations. The Iowa Board of Education examiners need a full top-down shakeup. ICE, especially ICE St. Paul, needs more than a press release. They need accountability. Maybe a few pink slips at the St. Paul office. And for the rest of us, this is a case study in why systems don't replace vigilance. Paperwork doesn't keep your kids safe. Leadership does. And apparently Iowa has none. All right, folks. When a scandal like this breaks, the usual play is to let the news cycle burn hot for about a week and then bury it. You cannot let that happen. This is a perfect storm of incompetence. Local, state, federal. Parents and taxpayers should be demanding hearings. They should be demanding resignations and demanding that the word background check actually means something again. If you want accountability, you can't wait for bureaucrats to hand it to you. You've got to ask the tough questions. You've got to raise your voice and keep the pressure on, because if a fugitive can run a school system, then no one is watching the store. That's the truth. That's the courage. And that's the independence you came here for. This is the Morning Report, a production of FightBackMedia.com. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.